Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Thanks for joining us for episode 30 of Nerdery and Murdery. This is Geoffrey, and before we get into the episode, I wanted to be very transparent about something. You'll hear in the episode that we had a special guest on, and that guest comments at one point that they were very mad about something I did. And they were right. It was good that our guest was there. Had they not been, I'd have released this without thinking about it. I didn't think about it, and it was very irresponsible of me. We're not certified journalists or professional journalists or anything like that, but we are podcasters. We do have a responsibility with this being live to the public. So again, I just want to be very transparent, apologize to all of our listeners that it might get a little confusing when you hear our guests say that they were very mad about something I did, but we did edit it out. Just wanted to keep his points in there because he had some very good points along with that, even through my mistakes. So it won't happen again. And with that, on with the show.
Hi there. This is Keith Chenoweth. The real Keith Chenoweth, not the imaginary Keith Chenoweth that they drop on their silly little show.
Hi, this is Barbara, Keith Chenoweth's wife. So I have a few concerns. I know how much Geoffrey loves to read about, research, and pontificate about true crime. And knowing Geoffrey for as long as I have, I'm really starting to be concerned that he's becoming unhinged. Anyway, I also want to say, Geoffrey, I know what it's like to be you in the summer.
All right, welcome to episode 30 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 30. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery. And we have guestery again this week.
Guestery!
We've actually had listeners that have asked the question, when is Keith Chenoweth going to be on the show? And we have in the house today, Keith Chenoweth.
Hello, I'm the real Keith Chenoweth, except no substitutions.
So he's on our silly little show, as he said, The Stab this week. So happy to have him here. He's just going to be here to enjoy the fun today.
Yes, a little color commentary from the Keith Chenoweth, the real Keith Chenoweth.
I am going to make you cry, though.
Why are you going to make me cry?
We went to the Opera House last night.
Oh.
Not only did we go to the Opera House last night, when we walked in, I told him, I said, hey, by the way, I've mentioned you on our show as just a completely magical place and a great place to be, and he's never been here. And the guy behind the counter said, oh, have you ever been to our secret vault?
What?
No, we haven't.
What?
And we got to go to the secret area. It's not really secret. You could see it, but it's behind a little locked gate, and they have to let you in. It's where the rarest of rare stuff is in the store. And dude,
So like the original gods and demigods with the Cthulhu mythos in it. That kind
there
of
was some really old first edition stuff in there. I was very excited about a lot of things in there, so I'm not going to tell you anything that was in there. You'll have to experience it for yourself.
Okay.
I kind of rushed him out because I found it very boring.
That's a lie, number one.
Lie number one.
We got there, unfortunately, late, and they close at 9, so we got to just go around for a little while. I did get you a picture of the punk and hardcore vinyl section.
I like punk and hardcore.
I know. I figured you'd love that. So it was a lot of fun there last night. Had a blast. We'll have to take you back, and again, that's the Wright Opera House on the Denton Square, recycled bookstore. And right, exactly, no relation, but it's recycled bookstore, amazing place. I can't wait to take you back. Okay, so this episode releases on December 26th. So Merry Christmas, everybody!
Merry Christmas.
Oh, and for Will, Merry fucking Christmas.
Grinch.
You're such a Grinch. I hate you so much.
Look at that face.
You're a sick man. So before I talk about a couple of things, I did have a correction from our last episode. I incorrectly said Shelley loved Elf like you do, and she hates it like I do. So,
Really?
So the sibling, the sibling continuity continues, I guess.
No love for Buddy the Elf.
No, but, I have to say, I've got a podcast. She doesn't. It's on the air, so I win. Mark it. There you go, Shelley. Last weekend, and I told you, I sent you the pictures. I went down to see Keith in Austin, and we went to an arcade and got to play Dracula and Tommy. And dude, that Dracula is just as hard as I remembered it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd forgotten.
Yeah?
Well, I'd forgotten that magnet is on all the time,
Yeah.
and if you roll across it, there's a chance it's going to grab that ball and throw it. And that was just, oh my God. I mean, we sucked. We were doing terrible at it. I think Keith might have had one good game.
And neither one of you flipped it.
No.
Oh, fuck no. Are you kidding?
No. It was terrible. So that was a lot of fun. So wanted to give a shout out to the original Pinballs arcade. That's Pinballs with a Z at 8940 Research Boulevard in Austin, Texas.
If you'd like to sponsor us, we could work something out.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe some game cards or something. That would be nice. Yeah, Keith was drinking free Lone Star.
What? God, I can't drink beer anymore.
The other thing that I had, so as Keith and I were talking about the show, he remarked one of the things that's funny to him, and I've noticed it, and I've never thought about it in this light before, but it's so funny, is that when I'm talking, you are my Ed McMahon.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Absolutely.
not only that, but when I say something and then you repeat exactly what I said back to me, like Ed McMahon used to do to Johnny Carson. So Keith kind of put that to light, and I thought that was
Nice.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
So Hopefully we've got people who are listening after having a nice Christmas. I hope Christmas was good for everybody.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed our Christmas episode. That was a lot of fun. You know, we had our holiday movies and then a murder that was not a holiday at all.
No. That doesn't sound like that was pleasant.
No.
At all.
So that's really all I had. Do you have anything new for this week you wanted to talk about?
There was one thing. I do need to make a retraction on episode 21. I kept talking about New Order's album Revenge. New Order never made an album called Revenge. The name of the album was Republic. Revenge was by the Eurythmics. I don't know why my brain saw it that way.
Who knows?
Some fucking expert.
Wow! Wow!
Yeah. Guess you got tote there.
I got tote. And the tutting shall begin.
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a bit of that in this one. So Merry Christmas to everybody, and if nothing else, I say we get over to the nerdery side of the house.
Nerdery. Well, this is an interesting one. Someone had asked, I think it was actually Geoffrey and Will, for us to cover UFO conspiracy theories.
Outstanding.
So so UFO conspiracy theories are a subset of conspiracy theories which argue that various governments and politicians globally, in particular the government of the United States, are suppressing evidence that unidentified flying objects are controlled by a non-human intelligence or built using alien technology. Such conspiracy theories usually argue that Earth government are in communication or cooperation with extraterrestrial visitors, despite public claims to the contrary, and further that some of these theories claim that the governments are explicitly allowing alien abductions. Some of the individuals who've publicly stated that UFO evidence is being suppressed include Senator Barry Goldwater, British Admiral Lord Hill Norton, former NATO head and chief of the British Defense Staff, Vice Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, first CIA director, Israeli Brigadier General Chaim Shed, former director of space programs of the Israel Ministry of Defense, astronaut Gary Cooper and Edgar Mitchell, and former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer. Beyond these testimonies, the reports have presented no evidence to substantiate these statements and claims. According to the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, little or no evidence exists to support them despite significant research on the subject by non-government scientific agencies.
Well, and we're starting to get more released footage now of they don't necessarily call them UFOs anymore, but I think UFAs. Unidentified flying aerial, or so. I could be wrong on that. I don't remember, but there's an additional name for it that they use now.
Yeah.
But we've had some UFO incidents that are just not explained.
Yeah. Well, I think the U.S. government really. How bad was 2020 that the U.S. government released? Hey, we got a picture of a UFO, and everybody went, "Huh? Well, that makes sense."
Right. There's several documented cases, and you may have some of them in here. I don't know, but I think one of them is called the Princeton incident. It was a U.S. Navy one where several fighters and a couple of battle groups caught some UFOs, had them on radar.
Okay,
so it was pretty well documented, and I just, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out here that. I number one, I do not think we're alone in the universe.
Absolutely not.
I think this universe is entirely too big.
Yeah.
And it would just be so completely random that we are the only sentient life out there.
It is mathematically unlikely.
We may never get any evidence in our lifetime, which sucks, unfortunately.
Well, it may be like the Federation. Until you can prove that you have faster than light travel, nobody talks to you.
Well, faster than light travel, or prove that we're not so warlike.
Yeah.
Because we are.
Yes.
And, that could be part of it too. Because, one of the things that's talked about in a few places, it may have been in a movie. Matter of fact, it was a movie. I'm thinking about Contact. That why do we have to be so quick to assume that anybody who's coming here is warlike?
Yeah.
Because they might not be.
Well, I mean, honestly, if they have the technology to cross interstellar distances, they've probably solved most of their problems.
It's possible, but then you have the other side of the coin that they've crossed. They have the technology to cross those vast distances to take over everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got both sides of those. You've got some. Harry Turtledove has a really cool series about World War II, where an alien invasion happens right in the middle of World War II.
Right smack in the middle.
And the aliens have the equivalent of 1980s Earth technology.
Yes.
And so that's what they're fighting. And because the aliens, they sent probes way in advance, and they thought we'd still be fighting with sticks.
Yeah. You guys can speak to this. And the aliens also developed a in that book, an addiction to, was it ginger?
I think it
was it ginger.
No, it wasn't ginger. God,
it was a spice,
was
though. It wasn't cinnamon, was it?
Damn, it's been too long.
I'd have to.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but
yeah, they developed an addiction like crack.
Yeah.
To this drug, and the human race started using it to their advantage.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, there's nothing to say that any intelligent life out there is necessarily going to be good or necessarily going to be evil. But I think the point is very valid. I don't know that anybody is going to outright contact us until we can prove that we're worthy.
Well, I think that it speaks to that point that we just assume that anybody who would come visiting has bad intentions.
Sure.
That says more about us than it does about any potential thems.
Sure.
Right?
No, absolutely.
So circling back, this Alien Conspiracies kind of starts on the night of Halloween, on the night before Halloween in 1938. Orson Welles directed the Mercury Theater on the air live radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel, The War of the Worlds. By mimicking a news broadcast that shows the show was quite realistic sounding for its time, some listeners were fooled into thinking that a Martian invasion was underway in the United States. Now, I will say this. Orson Welles knew that everybody else was listening to another show beforehand and then tuned over to the Mercury Theater on the air. They listened to like 15 minutes. So he gave all of the information of this is a radio show, and we're going to do a teledrama here. And then when everybody switched over, he was already in the middle of it. So Orson Welles kind of knew that was going to happen, and he was, just trying to flounce up his publicity.
Right.
I mean, he's admitted to this many, many times. Widespread confusion following an outrage and controversy. Some later studies have argued that the contemporary press exaggeration the extent of the panic, but it remains clear that many people were caught up to some degree in the confusion. And now, I do have an anecdote. My grandfather remembered this. He remembers sitting out on the front porch with his dad, and they were listening to that program all the way through because they didn't like the other show, right? So they were listening to this, and this kid comes running up. It's like, the Martians are taking over. The Martians are taking over. They're like, no, it's a show. Go home. This kid had run up like a mile. In other countries, reactions were similar. In 1949, part of the script of War of the Worlds was read out over the radio in Quito, Ecuador, without announcement, as if it were a major piece of breaking news. Huge crowds of people emerged onto the streets and sought refuge inside churches with their families. The broadcast of the fact that no invasion was happening, and an angry mob formed and burned the station to the ground.
Wow.
It cost between 6 and 20 deaths. And a lot of other countries experienced problems with broadcasting the War of the Worlds. Now, according to U.S. Air Force Captain Edward J. Rupert, the Air Force files often mention the panic aftermath of the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast as a possible reaction to the public in confirmation of evidence of UFOs. However, the files have not been made available to corroborate his assertion.
By the way, ginger was the spice.
It was ginger?
Yeah,
Okay.
I looked it up.
Now, Donald Kehoe later began investigating flying saucers for True magazine. Kehoe was one of the first significant conspiracy theorists, asserting eventually that the saucers were from outer space and were on some sort of scouting mission. Kehoe claimed to derive his theory from his contacts in the U.S. Air Force and Navy intelligence, Project Sign, based at Air Technical Intelligence Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and its successors, Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, which we've mentioned before.
Right. Project Blue Book is a pretty famous one.
Yeah.
So this is before the Roswell incident.
Yes, this is in the 40s.
Okay.
Kehoe later found a NICAP, a civilian investigation group that asserted that U.S. government was lying about UFOs and covering up information that should be shared with the public. NICAP had many influential board members, including Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, which I mentioned earlier, the first director of the CIA. To date, no substantial evidence for NICAP's assertion has been presented beyond accounts that are anecdotal and documented hearsay or rumor. Now, there was a great Los Angeles air raid. This happened in 1942. The Great Los Angeles Air Raid, also known as the Battle for Los Angeles, is the name given by contemporary sources to the imaginary enemy attack and subsequent anti-aircraft artillery barrage that took place from late February 24th to early February 25th, 1942, over Los Angeles, California.
This was real?
Yeah, it actually happened. A lot of people think they were... Remember in 1941, they talked about, the Japanese are attacking. And
right.
Yeah, that's partially based on this. Some people say it was UFOs. Other people say it was the Japanese, but they did fire off a whole bunch of anti-aircraft artillery into the sky.
Interesting. I never heard about this.
Yeah, initially the targets of the aerial barrage were thought to be attacking forces from Japan, but Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox, speaking at a press conference shortly afterwards, called the incident a false alarm. A small number of modern-day ufologists,
right,
have suggested that reported targets were extraterrestrial spacecraft.
Wow.
When documenting the incident in 1983, the U.S. Office of Air Force History attributed the event to a case of war nerves, likely triggered by a lost weather balloon and exacerbated by stray flares and shell bursts from adjoining batteries.
It's always weather balloons.
Yes.
I mean, excuse me. So much. I mean, because the Roswell incident gets attributed to a weather balloon.
Yes.
I don't know. And I know we did a lot with weather balloons, because I know that around the time of the Roswell incident, one of the things we were doing was testing the atmosphere for radiation.
Yeah. Well, and Alkali Lake at Roswell is a skunk works. So I'm sure they found a whole bunch of experimental aircraft there.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, the Germans built something like 50 at the end of the Second World War, something like 50 saucer-shaped jets.
Yes.
The Russians got half of them. We got half of them. And shortly after that is when we started really seeing, reports of flying saucers. Well, they were German. Unfortunately, the saucer design or lifting body design doesn't work very well, and a lot of them crashed. But you get a lot of UFO sightings in Russia as well at about the same time. Well, we were the only two groups that had them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think some of that could be attributed to that,
Well, it may be, but so many stories you hear out there that are true stories of people who have witnessed an event, where you have large groups of people who have witnessed an event. There was one in Australia that I think was witnessed by like 300 people.
Yeah.
And that is one of those cases where the quote-unquote men in black showed up.
Really?
And said, you didn't see a UFO. That's not what you saw. You need to pretty much forget about that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but don't be talking to the press, because you didn't see a UFO.
You didn't see nothing.
And that's the thing that you'll see in a lot of these cases that are very well documented, where not just one person saw something, but multiple,
hundreds
in various areas.
Yeah, and filming, lights in the sky and things like that.
But then somebody shows up that says, those weren't UFOs. That's not what you saw.
Right on.
Mysterious people they've never seen before.
I wonder how much of that is the cover for what they may actually be doing. Because I know Alkali Lake, they were okay with the UFO stories because it kind of covered up what they were actually working on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's been several accounts of that as well, that we were very willing to let the UFO stories go out there, because showing the little UFO things gave Russia a different thought from what we were actually doing.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, this is Well, I mean, a lot of people described stealth bombers back in the 50s and the 60s, and we eventually got them in the, what was it, the 80s?
80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we started putting the stealth paint on a lot of the planes, because the B-52 has some level of stealth on it.
Yeah.
That's when, but the 80s were definitely when we started using a lot more of the materials that would, basically what they called play space invaders with your screen, ECCM and ECCM, electronic countermeasures, electronic countermeasures.
Hello, Shadowrun.
Actually, I learned that from Starfleet battles.
Did you really?
Yes. ECM and ECCM. But yeah, where they literally would make it look like there was way more planes than there really were, or the planes were in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. So playing Space Invaders with the radar screens is what they said.
Nice. Circling back, I wanted to talk about a couple people specifically in this community. So the first person I want to talk about is Art Bell.
Of course.
Arthur William Bell III was an American broadcaster and author. He was the founder and original host of the paranormal-themed radio program Coast to Coast AM, which is syndicated on hundreds of radio stations in the United States and Canada. He also created and hosted its companion show, Dreamland. Coast to Coast still airs nightly. In 2003, Bell semi-retired from Coast to Coast AM. During the following 4 years, he hosted the show for many weekends on Premier Networks. He announced his retirement from weekend hosting on July 1st, 2007, and occasionally served as a guest host throughout till 2010. Classic episodes of Host to Host AM can be heard in some radio markets on Saturday nights under the name Somewhere in Time, hosted by Art Bell. He started a new nightly show, Art Bell's Dark Matter, on Sirius XM Radio that began on September 16th, 2013, and it ended 6 weeks later on November 4th, 2013. So Art Bell had this idea for a radio show. He started out as a rock music disc jockey. He moved into talk radio, and it was originally supposed to be a late-night Las Vegas program as a political call-in show. And he just it morphed into a paranormal show where he talked about UFOs and
exorcisms. Yeah, because
dragons.
I had actually heard
ghosts.
One of the episodes that he had someone on that was supposedly possessed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that episode well. Very creepy.
Yeah. Bell and Al Corbett renamed the show Coast to Coast AM and moved its broadcast from the Plaza Hotel in Las Vegas to Bell's home in Pahrump, which is also in Nevada. So Bell eventually abandoned conventional political talk in favor of topics about conspiracy theories. He got a significant bump in overnight ratings. The show shifted significantly after the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he would have these nice little radio shows where he would talk about UFOs and things, and people would call in with all of these things and sightings, and there's hundreds of hours of accounts of UFO sightings and abductions, and just he was a real champion for these people because Art Bell is relatively certain that something happened to them.
Sure. Did he claim that something happened to him?
I don't have any of that in my notes.
Okay. Could be wrong. I often am. What do I know? I'm an idiot.
No. So he announced his retirement several times, but he did say that he was getting a lot of hate mail throughout the years. And he was kind of worried about his safety. He kind of claimed that it was, government inspired, that people just wanted to shut him down.
Right.
But he did receive a lot of hate mail and death threats over the years. So, on December 11th, 2015, Bell posted that he would be his final retirement message via his Facebook page. He cited safety concerns for his family by saying, if one of them were harmed because of what I love doing in my life, it would be over. Throughout the fall, Bell reported several incidents where an unknown number of armed trespassers came onto his property, sometimes firing gunshots. These events have been said to occur during and around the time of his broadcasts, and this announcement came a mere 5 months after the start of his most recent show, Midnight in the Desert. Art Bell broadcast this for 25 years.
Right.
And again, it's a lot of the alien conspiracy folks would never, ever miss an episode.
Oh, sure. And a lot of people thought he was a wackadoo.
Yeah.
It's
a good show. I mean, whether you believe it or not.
I listened to it.
It's a great show.
Yeah. I don't think anybody was right in the middle with Art Bell if you knew about Art Bell.
Yeah.
You either were like, wow, this guy is amazing
Yeah.
and his stories are great,
Yeah.
or wow,
Very
he's
gripping.
a wackadoo and just laughable.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a middle ground for him.
No. But I mean, the same people would listen because
sure.
it's entertaining either way.
Sure. You'll get that with many radio personalities that it can just captivate an audience. Howard Stern.
Yeah.
There were people that loved him. There were people that hated him.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that hated him were still listening. More than anything else, just to have more hate to throw at
Yeah,
him.
just so they could be haters.
Right. Dr. Ruth Westheimer had that too.
Yes.
I would say more of an analog than Howard Stern might be Alex Jones, right? Where here's another guy who's making his trade, largely on, conspiracy theories and outrageous claims about the government. And you've got half the people who believe that every word he's saying is completely true. Mm-hmm. And you've got the other half of the people saying, oh, I only listen because it's entertaining. This guy's a complete whack job or
Right.
grifter.
Right.
And there's no, to your point, there's no middle ground. Nobody would listen to Alex Jones and think, maybe this guy has some good points. You're either a believer or you're not.
Sure. Limbaugh had the same thing.
Yeah.
You had the fanatics with his show, and then you had the people who completely hated him and listened to his show just to hate him.
Just to hate on him. Yeah.
So, yeah, good examples of them.
Yeah.
The next person I would like to talk about is Giorgio A. Tsoukalos.
Not familiar with this.
George Tsoukalos. Yeah, you probably are. Okay, so this is the guy who's on the alien conspiracy shows with the Robert Smith haircut.
Oh, yes.
I didn't know he had a real name.
Yes.
Yeah,
He goes by
except
George.
weird alien conspiracy guy.
He's just like, he's the aliens. It's always aliens. That's his name to me.
He is a Swiss-born writer, ufologist, television presenter, and producer. He is a proponent of the pseudo-archaeological theory that ancient alien astronauts interacted with ancient humans. He is known for his appearances on television series Ancient Aliens. Now, Tsoukalos is of Greek and Austrian heritage. He was actually born in Switzerland. He is a 1998 graduate of Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York, with a bachelor's degree in communications. For several years, he worked as a bodybuilding promoter and volunteer in IFBB-sanctioned bodybuilding contests, including Mr. Olympia. He produced and directed the annual IFBB San Francisco Pro Grand Prix from 2001 until 2005. So, yeah, those are his credentials.
Nothing that tells me he is a UFO expert, but okay.
Yeah. So Tsoukalos appeared on the Travel Channel, the History Channel, the Sci-Fi Channel, and National Geographic's channels, as well as Coast to Coast AM, and was a consulting producer on 23 episodes of Ancient Aliens.
I'd just like to note at this point that I don't think anybody can be called an alien expert unless they are actually emerging from an alien ship.
That's fair.
Well,
yeah, I'll give you that.
I mean, that's me. That's how I got here today. I didn't know how y'all got here, so,
Were you beamed down?
Of course.
Or did you take a shuttle?
Hey, we talked about that in the Star Trek episode that I beamed off a stage in Hollywood. So
That's
suck
true.
it.
Suck it, Trebek. Tsoukalos, I'm sorry, circling back. I can't stop giggling. He is the co-founder of the former Legendary Times magazine, which was later published in 2008. The magazine features articles from Eric Von Daniken, David Hatcher Childress, Peter Feibag, Robert Boville, and Luke Bergen on topics of ancient astronauts and related subject matters.
I'm sorry. Feibag?
Fiebag.
Okay.
Feebag?
It might be Feebag.
Yeah, it could be Feebag.
Either way, doesn't matter. It just struck me as humorous. Sorry
humorous.
for anybody
Hey, I
out
was
there
trying not to pronounce
that's a
it,
feebag or fiebag.
Fiebag. Fiebag or Feebag. Tsoukalos also hosted the H2 series In Search of Aliens, which ran for one season in 2014. In 2021, he appeared as himself on television series Resident Alien. That's the show that Alan Tudyk is doing, Resident Alien.
Oh, really?
Yes. George Tsoukalos is the director of Eric Von Daniken's Center for Ancient Alien Astronaut Research, the Archaeology, Astronautics, and SETI Research Association, AAS.RA, and presents himself as an expert in numerous documentaries. However, Georgi A. Tsoukalos has no qualifications or background in any field relevant to the research he undertakes. Instead, he has a bachelor's degree in sports information and communications from Ithaca College and was previously a bodybuilding promoter.
Lovely. Well, you put your brand out there and you make your claims, and you're going to have people that are going to believe you, and you're going to have people that are going to not believe you.
It's aliens.
I know. I've seen those, and they're very hokey.
Yes, they are.
And that's the thing. You're going to get a lot of people that get very hokey on a lot of these things, but I'm sorry. There's been some UFO accounts out there that's some pretty serious shit.
There's something going on. I will agree.
I would
with that.
absolutely agree.
I think there's something
whether
going on.
it's governments, shadow governments, secret governments that have these flying objects, or it's really an alien, you're absolutely correct. There is something.
There's something going on. I will give you that. I honestly think that if aliens were here, they would be basically in duck blinds. We would never see them.
Sure. No,
because
absolutely.
as soon as we saw one, that dude would get fired. They'd send somebody else out to do the duck blind.
Well, and there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever, if we were to see one alien, we would absolutely try to capture it and kill it and dissect it. 100%. That's what would happen. And that's where I go back to the very beginning of this, that it very well could be that there are races out there that are watching us, but aren't going to talk to us.
Absolutely
because they know that we're kind of wackadoos.
Yeah.
We're quarantined.
Yeah, we're quarantined.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we haven't. We have not yet been uplifted, as it were.
We'll be here until the hyperspace byway gets shoved through.
Oh no, Vogon space poetry. Well, that basically does it for my notes. I had a few things on Carlos Allende, but most of those accounts have been debunked.
Sure.
So I didn't want to put a lot of that stuff out there.
Well, and I think this is one that, similar to Star Trek, that we could really find individual episodes on, because I think there's some very interesting accounts that that I think you would find fascinating to study on. And like I said, there's that one in Australia that's very fascinating because it was seen by like 300 people.
Well, like I say, in 2020, the U.S. government released what looks like a UFO. They were like, hey, we found this. This is we're going to release this. And it was in the middle of the pandemic and everything was going to hell in a handbasket. And it's like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, of course they release it now.
Well, you should look up the Princeton incident too, because the Princeton incident, I want to say, has been since 2000.
Okay.
So it's I think.
Yeah.
Look up the Princeton incident, because that really might be an episode we want to cover, because it's a good one. The one in Australia that I can't remember what the name of it is, but I think there's several out there that are some fascinating stories, because I mean, we kind of talked about a couple of people who are very laughable.
Yes. In
some ways. And I think there's some very serious subject matter you could probably hit on.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah. There's some some of the members of the various military and hierarchy are like, hey, something's going on.
Sure.
We need to investigate it. I agree.
Well, and it's no small thing to say that we have a extraterrestrial, or we have multiple extraterrestrial life committees, groups in the government.
Yes.
We've had SETI for years. That's constantly on the search. I used to have that screensaver where it was, going through all the data that was coming in. There's just too much out there for this just to be fantasy.
I would like to propose a theory, and this is just me thinking. Just
Propose.
Are you sure? I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy or anything. So, okay, let's assume for a second that it's not aliens. Well, what else could it be?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that it could be us, but not us? An archaeologist from 10,000 years in the future who's coming back.
Oh, so I mean, because now you're diving into time travel, which is a whole episode in itself.
I know, but just
I mean,
as a thought experiment.
I mean, 100%. I at some point want to cover Project Pegasus.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that. So here's something for you to research. In this UFO episode, Project Pegasus and the attorney, I think he is, up in Seattle, that has been very vocal about he was part of a time travel experiment. And that he was told he would become the president. He's been running now. I think he's run twice. You should look up him because his stuff's pretty
kind of out there,
pretty wild.
Yeah,
pretty wild. But yeah, it all comes back into Project Pegasus.
Okay.
So I mean, we've had government-backed projects.
Yes.
About proposed time travel, about extraterrestrial life. We've thrown money at it.
Yes.
There's something.
There's something going on. I will agree. There is something going on. I, again, don't think it's aliens because I'm kind of with Keith here. And you a little bit, that I think if they were coming here, we wouldn't see them.
Well, and if it's time travelers, let's go ahead and throw it out there. Matt Groening is one of them.
Yeah, he is pretty predictive.
Yeah. He's had some very accurate predictions.
Yes,
he's also had some very not accurate that people have tried to say, or oh gosh, this happened. One of the things with Matt Groening that a lot of people don't realize is the entire production crew of The Simpsons, which is what we're talking about with Matt Groening. For those of you who don't understand that, the whole premise is the show The Simpsons has quote unquote predicted several events like the Trump presidency, and there's been other things.
Yes.
What people who really are all over this don't realize is the entire production crew of The Simpsons is chock full of people from MIT, from Harvard, from Yale, big time mathematicians.
Yeah.
Who have, they're predicting stuff. They're using math.
Yes.
Something I suck at.
Well, I think you also can't underestimate the importance of if you throw 10,000 wacky ideas at the wall, a few of them are going to stick.
Yes, they are, sir. Yes, they are.
Absolutely. So that's the whole thing with Matt Groening. For anybody who doesn't know, the whole theory that they've got time travel, that they're all time travelers because of that. But yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with you. That it could be us. I'm a believer in time travel. I fully believe that it's possible, and maybe I'm the wackadoo for thinking that, but I fully believe that that someday we might hit it. One an absolutely fascinating topic, and again, we're talking about UFOs, but I'm into time travel. Is read the whole thing of John Tidor. From the early aughts, I think.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, the time traveler.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating subject.
I'm a time traveler. Did you know that?
Okay.
Yeah, me personally. You're sitting right here with a time traveler. Yeah, I travel forward in time at a rate of 1 minute per minute.
I hate you both.
Well, I think we've covered some interesting topics on ufology. I think we had some fun.
Well, and I think we've got some definite fodder for other episodes,
Future episodes.
because I don't think this is it with the UFO talk. I think we can really dive into that. I think we can really dive into many subjects about time travel too, because there's a ton of them out there that's some very good stuff. So I look forward to more of this in the future. Enjoyed hearing a little bit about the history there. So we'll hear more at another time.
Sweet.
So then I guess with that, then we'll kick off onto the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
So for my story this week, I got my information off Killer Motive on Oxygen, another Oxygen article, Family Law News, The Today Show, Nevada Appeal, Daily Mail, and True Crime Discussions. And for today, we're going to be talking about the murder of Ben Oxley.
Ben Oxley. Okay.
Yes, Ed. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's early morning, about 3:30 a.m. on February 21st, 2008, in the small town of Minden, Nevada. It's a pretty. Oh God. Pause. I'm gonna have to start that whole thing over. Pause it.
I'll try.
Because I definitely can't talk about that with him doing that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Serious topic, serious face.
Serious eye, serious mouth, serious face. Okay.
All right. So in the early morning, at about 3:30 a.m., February 21st, 2008, small town of Minden, Nevada, population of 3,151 in 2019. So
Wow.
It's not a big town.
No, tiny town.
Melissa Oxley placed a call to 911 saying her husband, Ben Oxley, had been shot to death while she slept next to him.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so and she didn't notice?
No.
Yes, I have questions.
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
There are sound sleepers, and then there are sound fucking sleepers.
So she actually talks about that her husband said that she could sleep with a train running through their house. So who knows? She was supposedly a sound sleeper, and that comes into play here.
Okay.
Because like I said, she's called 911 and she said her husband has been shot next to her, right next to her. Little background on Ben himself. Ben was a fraternal twin. He and his brother Billy were two of 7 children who grew up in Hawaii. And in 1996, Ben followed his brother to Nevada and moved into a house with Billy and his former girlfriend, Dawn.
Okay.
Billy would move out later, but then Ben and Dawn began a relationship. So Billy broke up with Dawn, and then he moved out of the house. Well, and now Ben and Dawn have gotten into a relationship.
Okay.
3 years later, Ben was doing really well with an air conditioning business. He was getting his life together, and he asked Dawn to marry him.
Okay.
Ben's friend Cindy Graham said that Ben and Dawn had a great relationship. They were fun. They were cool to be around. And she said they were absolutely in love.
Right on.
2 years into their marriage, they had a baby girl, Alyssa. And Billy said that once Alyssa was born, that she was the light of Ben's life. The videos I saw on it really just showed that he was the doting dad. He was all over this girl. She was the absolute love of his life, and everything revolved around her for him.
I get that.
Billy said that he really focused everything on her. This would start to sour the marriage between he and Dawn. Because Dawn really kind of felt he's paying more attention to this kid than me. And they would get into little tiny petty fights. Just they would argue over anything, and this eventually led to divorce. Ben and Dawn had joint custody of Alyssa, even though they divorced. So she lived back and forth. So Ben, being a single dad, he decided to get his life back together, and he met Melissa, who he soon felt was his soulmate, and they would get married on September 17th, 2006. By 2007, Ben and Melissa had moved into a house in Minden, And Alyssa was still spending half of her time with Ben and half of her time with Dawn.
Okay.
But Dawn was now struggling with drug and alcohol addiction pretty bad. And Ben decided he wanted to fight for full custody of Alyssa. And he took Dawn to court to determine who would have custody. And he won. Not only did he win, but Dawn was also ordered to pay child support. So double whammy on Dawn that she lost custody of the child and she's got to pay the money. They said that she was pretty pissed off about this.
Yeah.
Soon after this, Ben and Melissa brought in her brother Craig to live with them. So they had a pretty full house.
Yeah.
Between Alyssa and Craig, Ben and Melissa. Then we go back to February 21st, 2008. Melissa said she woke to a noise that she later realized was a shotgun blast.
Wow.
And that she was covered in blood. On the 911 audio, she said, and this is, it was very, the 911 audio was very strange to listen to, as well as the interrogation later. Just her overall demeanor, her overall behavior was very weird. Could be shock. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But the 911 call, she said, quote, "I was sleeping and I heard this loud noise, like something hit me in the head. And I was like, well, that's weird." That was very strange when she said that because she said exactly like that. Well, that's weird. So I get up and I'm like, I smell gunpowder. And I get up and I'm like, babe, did you hear that? And I turned on the lights and it's ugly. The police did arrive, and Douglas County Sheriff John Stork, he said it was one of the most horrific crime scenes he'd ever seen. He said that the front door was open, so they were thinking somebody must still be in the house when they arrived. They got in and began looking around. The first bedroom they came to was where Melissa's brother Craig was sleeping. And they noticed somebody was under the covers, and they've been shouting at him, show your hands, show your hands. And there was no response from the person under the covers. So then the sheriff went over and he nudged the person, and Craig sat straight up. So Craig has slept through this whole thing too.
That's her brother, right?
That's her brother, who was sleeping in another bedroom, has slept through the shotgun blast and police shouting to raise your hands. Get up, raise your hands.
Okay, that's weird. But you know what? It could be a genetic thing too.
It's possible.
Okay. I'm with you so far.
Sheriff Stork then
You
noticed...
with us so far?
Kinda.
Okay.
Where have we lost you?
I'm just thinking that if this was staged and you were planning to build your alibi, of course you would tell your natural brother to play dead when the police hollered at him, so that to establish that there was this family issue of being able to sleep through, say, a shotgun blast.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Sheriff Stork, he noticed Melissa standing in the hallway at that point, and she had blood all over her clothes, and he said she was in total shock. They moved Melissa out of the hallway, and they went into the bedroom, and that's where they found Ben had been shot in the back of the head with a shotgun, and just blood was just everywhere. He said it was just a horrific scene. Police began the search of the Oxley home, and they found shotgun ammunition in Craig's bedroom. They also found guns in the garage, and Craig and Melissa both claimed that they were asleep during the murder.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, the police initial thought was either Craig or Melissa is covering for the other.
Okay.
The Sheriff Stork said, how could two people sleep through someone breaking into their house, enter the master bedroom, and fire off a shotgun, all without anybody hearing or seeing anything? So both Melissa and Craig get interrogated. They're brought in for questioning. But they both denied committing the crime. Police did ask Melissa, how could you be sleeping next to him and not hear a sound? And all she said was, I'm a sound sleeper. Craig also told the police he was sleeping and then woke up to a bunch of lights in the face when the police woke him up. So they're both claiming we just slept through this, which I completely agree. If you've ever been around a shotgun and heard it go off, how do you sleep through that? Especially in a home.
But she never claimed that she slept through the shotgun blast.
Yes, she did.
She's claiming that the shotgun woke her up.
Okay, so if somebody comes creeping into your house with the intention of shooting somebody with a shotgun, it's entirely possible for somebody who's not even a super sound sleeper to be asleep right up until the moment that the shotgun's fired.
True.
Which it sounds like that could plausibly be what happened here.
True.
Yeah, but don't you think she would have saw somebody?
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If she wakes up, so she's going to see or hear somebody running out of the house.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, and let's say it's not her. Again, shotgun blast in the house.
Yeah.
How did Craig not wake up?
Yeah. Because those
That's-
things echo.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, they echo outside. And you think about in a house. So
You're good, dude.
So police did take residue tests on both Craig and Melissa, but it turned up negative. So
Okay.
no gunshot residue. They also questioned 6-year-old Alyssa, and it was not Alyssa. I'll spoil that now. It was not Alyssa.
It was not the 6-year-old.
Alyssa told
What is wrong with you?
Alyssa did tell police that she heard a door creak and saw a dark figure in the house, but she could not tell if it was a man or a woman.
Okay.
So police could not determine a motive, but there was entirely too many unanswered questions to be able to eliminate either Craig or Melissa. Melissa, though, started pointing suspicion at Ben's ex-wife, Dawn.
Okay.
As you do.
Yes,
as you
yes.
do.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not at Dawn. She was pointing a finger at a former boyfriend of Dawn. Yes, sorry. Supposedly, the friend was recorded saying he was dissatisfied of how Ben treated Dawn. Remember the contentious divorce. The former boyfriend did have a police record, and he had just finished serving 120 days in jail on drug charges. The police did locate him out of town, 8 hours away in Lancaster, California, which they determined he was there at the time of the murder, so he was cleared. So police then go to question Dawn, the ex-wife. According to the police, Dawn was drunk when they showed up, and Dawn told police that her and her current boyfriend, James Matleen, had been together all night with friends and family, watching movies, drinking. She said that they went to bed about 4:30 when everybody left. So the police ruled them out because they had an alibi. So the police are still looking at Melissa, but they didn't have any evidence to charge her. So she gets released. They do begin watching her. They're following her. They've got surveillance on her. And the Douglas County Sheriff's Department said that they continued to monitor her behavior and talk to her to kind of see if her story was changing, because most people can't hold on to a lie. They can only hold on to the truth. So they're accosting her every chance they can. When she goes to a store, they're asking her a question. They're taking a chance. If she gets pulled over for something minor, they're wanting to talk to her. They're wanting to question her further. 3 months after the murder, police got a call from an insurance company stating that Melissa was to receive Ben's insurance money in the amount of $400,000. Always a bad sign.
Insurance money.
Well, it's always a bad sign that there is insurance, large sum on somebody who has been murdered, because we've seen that so many times. And Melissa never mentioned this to the police. And the police, Sergeant Elgis of the Sheriff's Department, he said it was very concerning because it was fairly new. And I think anybody who's watched TV have seen the Murder for Hires, where they take out the insurance policy and kill their spouse. How many times we heard that on this podcast?
You've never talked about that on your show, right?
No, absolutely not. We never talk about killing people for insurance money.
Like on the very first episode.
Mike Malloy.
Police also discovered that Melissa was already dating, so red flags are starting to rise.
Yeah.
Police felt they had a motive now for murder.
Okay.
So with the investigation in Melissa heating up, a judge decides that Alyssa would be safer in Dawn's care. So they ordered Alyssa to move in with her mother and her live-in boyfriend, James.
Okay, wait, hold up. So Melissa is a known drug user.
Dawn. Dawn is the known drug user.
I'm sorry. And that's who they sent Alyssa back to.
Yes.
So Dawn, known quantity as a drug user and presumably an unfit parent if she had Alyssa completely taken away from her before.
Right.
So why does it seem like a good idea to send Alyssa back to her now?
I didn't think it was a good idea at all.
Yeah, me either.
But the judge felt that there was enough evidence being built up against Melissa that they felt it was a better environment than having Alyssa live with a possible murderer.
Well, okay,
So-
everything being relative, but sure. I mean, there wasn't anybody else.
I know. Hey, who knows?
Nobody else.
But Melissa never inquired about the insurance money, nor did she seem to care about it. Melissa never asked the police to close the case, which you have to have in order to get insurance. And when questioned about the policy, she told police that she never asked about the money because she forgot it even existed. So there's that. She also claimed she began dating because she wanted to get back to a normal life. She said if she didn't pick up the pieces, she never would. So
Okay.
she goes into that. Sounds okay to me.
Sounds plausible.
Do you know what the timeline was between the death and the dating?
3 months. Within 3 months.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that. the devil's in the details, right? There's a lot packed into that word within, right? If it's like a week after he dies, okay, this is a problem.
Right.
If it's 3 months after he dies, that might be a little soon, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's incriminating.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they didn't
No.
specifically say when within those 3 months.
And friends and family could be pushing her. Hey, you need to get back out there, get your life
Well,
together.
she was pushing herself too. I mean, she said she had to. She said that there was no way that she would get to a normal life if she didn't. So 5 months went by with no further leads.
Okay.
And then, despite Melissa being a suspect early on, there was no leads, no new evidence, and Melissa got cleared.
Okay.
But then investigators decided to take a closer look at Dawn, the ex-wife.
Finally.
Yes. As I said earlier, Ben and Dawn, their divorce was anything but amicable.
But
Dawn,
didn't Dawn have an alibi?
she did.
A shitty alibi.
Yeah. Friends and family were over. They left. They went to sleep.
I've seen Law and Order. I know how shitty that alibi is.
Well, not only was the divorce bad, but Dawn had discovered that while she and Ben were married, that Ben had an affair. And Dawn started self-medicating after the divorce because of how bad the divorce was. And then remember that Dawn lost custody of Alyssa to Ben. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay. And she was ordered to pay child support. There were reports of Alyssa at 2 years old being found on the streets by herself while Dawn was passed out at home.
At 2?
Yep.
Okay.
The judge in the divorce case was reportedly so disgusted with Dawn and her lack of involvement with Melissa that was why he gave full custody to Ben. And according to friends, Dawn absolutely hated the idea of paying the $200 a month child support to the man she hates and another woman raising her child.
$200, and this is in like 2008, 2009, something like that?
Yeah. 2008. You're making me look 7. 2008. You're right.
So, yeah, that's...
That's a pittance.
that's pitiful was the
Right.
word. I don't know if those two words are related, but
Right.
yes.
Dawn's boyfriend, James, was an ex-felon, so he also had a record. And Dawn and James were brought in for questioning, but their story stayed the same. They were up till 4:30 in the morning watching movies with friends, and then they went to bed. They said they never left the house the night of the murder, which is why they got cleared in the first place. But then police discovered that James and Dawn being home all night was not quite true. Shocker, eh?
Dum.
Police actually went around and looked at surveillance at several stores, and James was seen on video surveillance at a 7-Eleven before 4:30 in the morning. So detectives then began trailing Dawn and James, as they had with Melissa. And they openly tailed them for over 6 months. They never tried to hide that they were tailing them. I mean, we're just completely, hey, Dawn, how you doing? You want to talk? They showed video surveillance, and police were just walking right up to them at the street where they were going. Multiple times, James got...
What's all this then?
Multiple times, James got caught for minor infractions, like he was stealing cigarettes, drunk in public, DWI, and it gave police further opportunity to keep questioning him. James never cracked. Same story. Kept right on it. Dawn, however, she got drunk one night and called the police in August of 2019, and she said, yeah, I'm ready to tell everything about Ben's murder.
What? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call a clue in an investigation.
She told police that she had expressed anger about her relationship with Ben to James, but never directly asked James to kill Ben. She said the night of the murder that James said, it's now or never. And Dawn said that she told him, no, not today, don't do it. But the problem was Dawn gave this testimony drunk. So it's not reliable. They knew it tainted the question, it tainted the story. They couldn't use it, and they didn't feel that this allowed them to question James further. So, but in 2009, in October, Dawn was arrested for a DWI. So they now had her in custody, and she sat for 2 weeks in jail with no cigarettes, no alcohol. So she's now completely sober, and on November 3rd, 2019, they questioned her again.
2019 or 2009?
2009, thank you. I do that. They questioned her about the night of the murder because she's sober now. What she said about James on the police interrogation was, quote, he said, no, I could really go take care of it. You know what I mean? Take care of Ben and then whatever it is, you could, something along those lines. And he said, do you want me to go do that? And I was like, it just wasn't. I was like, I'm sitting there going, are you serious? Are you kidding me? Yeah, that's great.
Hey.
That word salad was delicious.
I know, wasn't it? But that's word for word. Dawn had a 16-year-old son, Devin, from a previous marriage, who then came forward and told investigators that he heard his mother tell James that she wanted Ben dead the night of the murders. Devin said that Dawn was angry about how Ben ruined her life because he got full custody of Melissa and had to pay that $200 a month child support. Devin said that James said out of the blue, just say the word and I'll go kill him for you. And then Dawn replied, it's not just that, I just want him dead. So we now have that. The police said, however, they still didn't have enough for prosecution. I'm not sure how at this point, but they didn't. The biggest problem that they had, that they said, there was no murder weapon and no DNA found at the scene. So that was a problem. They had statements, theories, and circumstantial evidence, but they needed direct evidence in order to charge them. So now that Dawn was sober, the prosecutors offered her a deal, and they told her she would walk if she testified against James. And Ben's brother, Billy, told Killer Motive later, it was like making a deal with the devil, So the police did arrest James on June 19th, 2010, and he got charged with first-degree murder. On January 28th, I found this weird in the timeline. This came directly from the video. They arrested him on June 19th. And on January 28th, 2011, they're still questioning him and then told James that Dawn was going to testify against him. So they took, 6 months in order to tell him, hey, we've got everything on you and Dawn's going to testify against you. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us everything? I really don't know why they didn't try that tactic much earlier. I'm not sure about this time gap.
Well, I have a potential explanation for you if you want it.
Sure.
So, you know how you said earlier that she, called up drunk, she confessed, and they were like, well, that's all good and all, but we can't use that because you were drunk. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's a kind of a similar philosophy for a turning on somebody with an offer of flipping on them, right? It's like if somebody says to you, if you just rat out your buddy here, you get a free pass. what the fuck are you going to do? Of course you're going to rat out your buddy,
Sure.
whether it's true or not.
I
So
wouldn't rat out either of you guys.
You would drop
Oh,
the
my
dime
God.
on this asshole in a hot New York second. Don't act like you wouldn't.
Well, him, yes. You, no.
Oh, well, of course not.
Him, yeah. Are you kidding me? He's dying. He's dying. This is the second episode where I've sat here and watched him die. He's
This
red.
is how it happens. Me and William were witnesses.
Oh my god! This is gonna be a fun one. Okay.
Sorry. Anyway, I forgot my point.
Oh, we were talking about I would turn a dime on him to save me in a hot minute. But
Well, I'm just saying that when you're talking about is a judge going to look at some evidence as being reliable? The answer for I think an offer, a trade for a turning on your accomplice is, probably not that credible.
Maybe.
So you spend all this time trying to get James to incriminate himself so that they don't need that.
Well, maybe they spent all this time building rapport with him
that's all.
because we I've covered some before that and I've seen enough of the police interrogation is they definitely bring somebody in, a detective, to be a buddy to them. And, hey, come on, let's talk about this. What do you need? I need to get you a pack of cigarettes. You need to smoke. You want some coffee, whatever. So, yeah, could be.
Classic, good cop, bad cop bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
So he did admit that he told Dawn he would take care of Ben. Dawn said, I don't want you to take care of it. I want you to kill Ben. Dawn then drew a map of the Oxley house so she would know exactly, so that James would know exactly where to go.
Very helpful.
Also exceedingly incriminating.
Oh, very much so. They then went to 7-Eleven, the surveillance video where he withdrew $40. They then went to Walmart where he bought the shotgun shells. And it was then
was that caught on surveillance?
They didn't say that they had the Walmart on surveillance, but they had definitive proof that he bought the shotgun shells. I think they had receipts of that that they were able to show. So then he got all that, and then he realized he didn't have the map and didn't know how to get to Ben's house, so he had to go and get Dawn to show him. I guess he lost the map. He said they went into the house, and Dawn stopped in front of an open door that was Alyssa's room. The dark figure that Alyssa saw. It was her mother. He was almost to the master bedroom when he realized that Dawn was not following him, and so he went back and grabbed her by the arm, trying to drag her back. He took her in the living room, and he's whispering to her, what are you doing? And Dawn said she was going to take Alyssa. James said that he told her if they took Alyssa that they would know that they did it. So talked her out of that. He then went back into the bedroom where he said he shot and killed Ben. And James also revealed while they were on the way to Walmart, Dawn asked him to also kill Melissa. And he had agreed to do it, but after he killed Ben, James said he just couldn't pull the trigger again. So he was done at that point. So James is now confessed, and police had no choice but to set Dawn free because they gave her that deal. Unfortunately, Dawn will never serve justice for her part in this murder. It sucks that she didn't have to serve any time for this.
Yeah.
A man died because of her.
Yeah.
And I do not think justice was served.
Yeah.
James pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, and on March 16th, 2012, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, and he was also sentenced to an additional 4 to 10 years for conspiracy to commit murder.
Wow.
So
life plus 4 to 10.
I hope that sex was good.
No shit. So Melissa did legally adopt Alyssa after the case was closed. I did read on True Crime Discussions that Melissa was also given custody of Dawn's older daughter as well. I didn't find much of other information about that because I didn't see it anywhere else. Melissa said she does not hate Dawn, but she's disgusted by her. and sad that Dawn will never face justice for what she did. I agree with her on that. But Melissa emphasized the importance of forgiveness as a way of getting forward with her grief. And she said she wants Alyssa to be able to grow up without any anger being a part of her lives. So, she
loves that kid.
She does love the kid. She absolutely does. So I'm glad that turned out okay for her and Alyssa, and they apparently have a very, very good relationship. Both her and Alyssa were interviewed on the documentary. I think it is absolute crime that she didn't serve any time for this. I think it's just terrible. So that's my story for today.
Well, thank you, sir.
Hope you enjoyed that.
That was a fun ride.
Keith didn't enjoy that, I don't think.
You've just pissed me off.
Which part?
Well, two parts. One, the police were fucking dummies that they just bought the alibi from Don and James without any question.
Agreed.
And the way you break that alibi open, it's fucking easy. You go talk to all the people that were supposedly there. What movie did you watch?
Right.
When did you leave?
Right.
Their stories aren't going to match up.
No.
I'm not even a fucking cop, and it took me 5 seconds to figure that out.
Well, this isn't the first story we've covered that we've had police that seemingly didn't do a very good job. Not just police. We've also had prosecution who has not done a very good job of investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a famous one right here is the Scott Peterson trial. When the prosecution got up and said, Scott said that he and Lacey watched Martha Stewart and she was doing the meringue pie or the meringue cookies, and that episode wasn't even on TV. And the defense got up and said, right here in TV Guide, it says that she did. Could somebody boot up the video? And showed the video.
Wow.
That's a whole nother one. That's a very interesting case. I've actually heard it twice in the last week. Last week, 2 weeks. And This Is Why We Drink did it, and Crime Junkie. I just heard yesterday, Crime Junkie's episode of it. And it's a fascinating case that I didn't know much about. I realized I didn't know how little I knew about that case, and that might be one I try to cover myself at some point. But
have you said here's an example from right here, and I thought you were going to bring up something about Colin Davis.
Oh, Colin Davis, yeah.
Have you thought about covering that in an episode?
Yes, I have that on my list to cover. My mother-in-law was on the grand jury.
No shit.
So going to be talking to her about that at some point as well. So yeah, I absolutely want to cover that because that is a wild case.
There's a lot of old Fort Worth lore about who actually committed that murder.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we'll cover that on another time. So you said two things made you angry.
Well, there were actually three.
Oh, three.
I've forgotten the third one, and the second one I will bring up later.
Okay. So, Sorry that you got angry at the police interaction and everything like that. It's one of those things that I agree that the cops probably just didn't do their due diligence and they did give Melissa a lot of grief that she probably shouldn't have gone through. Not even probably, that she shouldn't have gone through. They didn't look hard enough at the alibis for Dawn and James. So.
Well, and I think maybe you've talked about this in a previous episode, but it's certainly a well-documented phenomenon, is that commonly investigators will get some blinders on. They'll get somebody in their sights that they're just sure did it, and it's like they won't pay any attention to anything besides trying to hound that person.
Scott Peterson. That's exactly what that is. They were completely focused on him, whether you believe he's guilty or not. They were very laser focused on him, and I think there's some very interesting evidence that came out in that case that maybe he didn't do it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a case called Curtis Flowers? About Curtis Flowers?
Mm-mm.
Some murders in somewhere, a small town in the South somewhere, in Louisiana or Mississippi someplace. I forget the details. But it was a perfect case of, somebody commits some heinous crimes. There's this one guy who's kind of on the periphery of this situation, and they zero in on him like 15 minutes after, they're called to the scene, and just proceed to spend years and years and years trying to make the facts fit him being the murderer. And he totally was not. Tried this man something like 6 times trying to get a guilty verdict. And I think a couple of times they did get guilty verdicts that were all overturned because of jury tampering.
Wow.
Yeah, not at all concerned with, like ethical due process or anything like that.
Well, not only that, but they're letting an actual killer go free.
Right.
That's the bit that twists my noodle.
Right.
It's like, okay, I get that you want to get this guy and you want to get him down, but you're going through all of this trouble, including jury tampering. What if he's not? And at some point, someone has to go, what if it's not this guy? Yeah. And if so, we need to catch the person who is doing this.
Yeah.
And at some point, there's somebody who is saying, what if this isn't the guy? And everybody else is like, shut the fuck up, Jim.
Adnan Syed is another case where they were pretty much laser focused on him very, very quickly. And I think there's a lot of doubt in that case, too, even though, as I said before, that his Supreme Court appeal was turned down in 2019. But I think there's a lot in that case and it's what Sarah Koenig said, that he either did it, or he's the unluckiest person alive. The same thing could be said about Scott Peterson, that he either did it or he is the unluckiest person alive. So, interesting stuff. So, awesome. So good week. Thanks for joining us for that.
Thank you, Keith.
Appreciate it. That'll take us to the end of this recording week. As always, you can find us on our website, nerderymurdery.com. There you can find our links to our social media as well as our emails if you want to send in anything for the show. Yes.
Yes. I was just going to say, yes, please. We always want to get better.
We want to get comments. If there's things you want to hear, we have done episodes for listeners already. We've got more coming out. So do send us your feedback. You can send us in any of our emails, any of our social media. On our webpage, you can also find the links to our merchandise. So if you want to show off your fandom and show your Nerdery and Murdery logo stuff, please do. We love to see that. You can find our Patreon there if you would like to donate to the show and help us keep going, because the costs do sometimes get a little pricey.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. We appreciate all of our patrons that help support us. And with that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
And I'm the real Keith Chenoweth, your special guest.
Guestery.
Guestery.
Cue the music.